Okay, so we're picking up where we left off. Oh, by the way, if you're not sure where we left off, or you didn't quite follow all the way, you can go to vbacourse.blogspot.com. This is where I'm posting the videos, as well as links to the files. So the most recent one posted was our last class. And you should be able to go to this file, product form AW20. Should be exactly where we left off. You can download that, vba-course.blogspot.com. Or if you followed along with everything we did, you can just keep whatever file you were working on last time. So just let's just do a little refresher on what we did, because we got introduced to user forms. It was kind of the first time that we saw it last time. So some of the new ideas for us, or the main new idea, is that now we've got kind of a new characteristic of an object that's going to be important to us, right? For the whole semester, we were talking about methods and properties, and now we've introduced a new one. It is the, so this would be, you know, what the code responds to. When an object receives an event, that's when we can make code execute. And so out of all this code that we wrote last time inside the form, the way we make it, the way that it, you know, what's the first part to execute? And the answer is, it's this one here called userform initialize. So when something causes the form to open, and just for kicks on module 1, we'll kind of go back here. We created a sub procedure called edit product data, and we're just saying show the form. We're calling the form object, or referring to the form object and saying run your show method. I think we attached a shortcut key to this. Control-Shift-E will run this. But then that causes the form to open, but it also triggers an event in the form. And the event that it triggers is initialize, right? Initialize happens right when the form first loads up into memory. And so there we're saying, let's remember the active cell, put it into a module level variable called row. We'll refer to it later. Or by the way, we're also saying, hey, if we're on the first row, then we don't want to be editing the headers. So set row to 2. And then we're calling show data. Show data is way at the top of the module. And it's just saying, hey, we're going to read the data off of the current row of the worksheet, and we're going to use it to set up different controls on the form. We got the thing we did at the very end was the combo box, the most complex thing that we did so far. We'll do some more things that are more complex today. But we said, hey, the combo box, you first have to get a list of choices. So when you drop down that drop-down list, those choices are populated, and that's what the add item method is doing. So here we're looking at the lists worksheet in column F. We're starting in row 2, and we're just going to continue to do that until we run out of data, until we bump into a blank cell in column F. And what are we doing? We're calling the add item method of the combo box. That's what builds the list. Then we're setting which one is selected by setting the value equal to whatever is selected, you know, whatever on the row that has our data. So that's where we got. I'll take your question in just a second. Let's just go ahead and check it out. Control-Shift-E should bring up the data from that row. And here we have the duck wood squealer. And it's in the category acrylic. And we can see those different items are there in the list. Okay, question? Yes, so over here, we're talking about combo box category. And this really does get to, even without the ME, this gets to our combo box we're talking about. So ME is it's what we call an alias. It is an alias for the form that contains this code. So that says the current form, CBO category. Kind of like on a worksheet, if you don't, you know, you're saying, just highlight cell 5 or cell range A5. And you don't tell it which sheet you're talking about, it's going to assume you mean the active sheet. But you can specify the sheet in front if you want to. It's the same thing here. If I don't tell it which form I'm talking about, it assumes the form that has the code on it. The whole reason I put it there in the first place was to show you that when you're typing, if you can't remember the name of your object, but you know it's a combo box, so you would have called it CBO something, you can type me.cbo, and that will take you to the list of all your objects that start with CBO, including controls. So that helps you, kind of helps you navigate. But you can put the ME on in front of any of your controls or leave it off, because it will assume the module that the code is in, or it'll assume the form the code is in. Okay, any other questions? All right, so our next task is going to be to give the user a way to select the department. Now, categories, there was a whole lot of them. Departments, we'll see on our list worksheet, there's only 4. Hunting, outdoor, general, and apparel. There's only 4 different departments. Do you think we need a drop-down list for just 4? Probably not. I mean, that's an extra click, right? Because every time you have to do the drop-down, it's a click to expose the list and another click to select it. With only 4, I might like to just show the 4 all the time and let the user pick the one. There's a couple of ways I could do that. One is with a thing called a list box. We're going to see the list box, but we're going to use it in a different context. In this one, what we're going to see is we're going to be exposed to the option button. So let's take a look. We come back into design mode at my form. I'll just click on the form product, double click. Maybe a single click was enough. Now double click. And we bring up my tools. And the little hammer and the crossed with the wrench is your toolbox. And let me zoom in while we're working on this. All right. So we're going to be using actually 2 different controls here. The option button we'll need, but we're not going to start with the option button. Instead, we're going to start with this one, the frame. So an option button is it's like controlling your radio. You can't have 2 radio stations playing at once. So the fact that you've selected a different radio station means you've unselected the one you're previously listening to. And that's what option buttons are. It's a set of mutually exclusive options. Now, but let's suppose that I wanted to have 2 different sets of mutually exclusive options. Maybe what I want here is to be able to select option buttons for which department it's in, and another option button to select maybe the discount I'll use as some option buttons as well. So the problem with option buttons is when you select one, it unselects all the others. And so if I want to have 2 different sets of option buttons to have them be different groups so that they only unselect each other within their group, that's what a frame will let me do. So that's this tool right here. So I'm going to bring a frame on, and I'll just bring it right about here. Now my frame, I'm not going to be referring to my frame through code. It'll just, all I need it here is for the grouping. But I do want to change the caption. So I'm not changing the name. I really only need the name if I'm going to refer to it through code. So frame 1 is going to be fine for me here. But my caption, then I will turn to say, these are my departments. So maybe I'll just say department. Doesn't quite fit there, so I'll just make it a little bit wider so I can see department spelled all the way out. Excellent. And now that I've gotten that frame built, I'm ready to bring my control on. So I'm going to need 4 different option buttons. So I'll bring the first one on and click and drag to build it. I must have double clicked instead of single clicking. I'm going to size it just a little bit more. It doesn't seem like it can show the whole text. Option button, that looks good. And now I'm just going to copy and paste that 4 or 3 more times. Go back. So I've got 4 option buttons placed on. It turns out that working with option buttons in the frame it's a little bit picky. I've done it since 1995. Ooh, it's kind of hard to say. I'm getting old. But so I'm kind of used to it. But I remember it's a little bit tricky when you're first doing it to get them all positioned and look like they're spaced well and such. So now I'm going to set up one of these for each of my categories. Well, my first category is hunting. So I'll select my first option button. I will change the name to OPT hunting. And I will change the caption to say hunting. And then the movies, I think they look just a little bit crowded to the side. So I'm going to go a little bit over, maybe. And then I'll go on to my next one. So I've got hunting. I always want to double click. I don't double click, I want to single click them. This one will be my second one, which is like outdoor, OPT outdoor. Caption will be outdoor. Next one, I'll do apparel, OPT apparel, APPAREL, is that right? I think that's right. Interesting. And change my caption to APPAREL. And then I'll make my last one general. Okay. So I've got my option buttons set up pretty well. By the amount of clicking I'm still hearing, I think you're probably still working on it. So questions about what we have set up here? Now, for our combo box, would you say it's easy or difficult to add a new item into the set of options that we're choosing? What would I have to do to add a new item into my combo box here? What does it take? Yeah, it's just data. All I would have to do is come over to, let me zoom out here, I'm too zoomed in. All I would have to do is come back over here to Excel, to here's my list of categories, come down to the end, add a new one in here. Now these are alphabetically sorted, they'll probably also want to sort it over here. But remember, the form itself reads this data to set up the options. Now, what we just did is fundamentally different because now we are hard coding the options right here into the form. If I decide I got to add another department, now I got to have someone that knows enough about VBA to come in here and modify the department. Probably also, I mean, modify the form, but probably also modify the code that I'm about to write as well. So, if I'm going to use option buttons to select among a set of options, it should be something that I'm pretty sure isn't going to change regularly. I definitely don't want to use category. Why would I create categories all the time? I don't use category with an option button. Plus, there's too many categories. But a set of option buttons is department. How often do I make a new department? Maybe never. Maybe sometime, I don't know. But just realize that's a risk about doing this, is that when the data changes in this case, someone's going to have to come in here and change the form. So that might be, I mean, maybe you're their consultant. They're going to hire you to come back and do it. You'll charge them a bunch of money. Maybe that's part of your strategy. I don't know. Just a thought. Okay, so now we got two things to do. Just the same two things we have with everything else. We've got to get it so that the form shows the right data when it opens, and when the user saves it, that it saves the data. So let's start with showing the data. So I'm going to come into my code. I'll just double click the form somewhere and go to the top where my show data sub-procedure is. And below my combo box, I'm now going to say this is my department option buttons. All right. So maybe I'll just make my data a little bit, or my module a little bit narrower, and let's look at the lists here. Oh, and I want department to be showing over there. Okay, so here are my departments. Oh, but I'm looking at the wrong page because I want to be looking at the products page, sorry. So my department is in column C. So when I'm reading the data into the form, I'm going to be looking at column C. I have to decide what to do based on what value is in column C. So I'm going to look at my data sheet and decide what to do. You can use the if statement, but in this case, I'm going to use a select statement. So select case, looking at column C's value. Again, whichever row I am on. We set the row when the form initializes, and then we are just, that's just the row that we're working on. So select case is going to start with select, it's going to end with end select, and then I'll have multiple cases in the middle. So now I'm going to say if the cell says hunting, then what do I want to do? Then I want to make my hunting option button selected. And here's how I do that. The name of the option button, OPT hunting, dot value, has a value property, equals, what do you think it is? What should I set it to? What do you think? Yeah, it's true. It's a Boolean object. Its value is true or false. If the button is selected, if it's clicked, it's true. If it's not, it's false. And so I'm going to set the value property of my option button to true. And then I'll have my next case statement. Case, whatever the next one is. What is the next one? Hunting, outdoor, thank you. Now, in fact, and this is the typical form that we see the select case statement. And that's because we can put as many statements as we want in between the little case blocks. But when we have just one, I can bring that up onto the same line by putting a colon in between them. Colon is the character that says, hey, I'm putting two statements on the same line. And when I only have a single line to execute, sometimes the case statement will read much better if it's done this way. And in fact, this is one of those cases. So here I'm going to have apparel. And actually, I'll just put case else here, because if it's not one of those three, we're going to assume it's general. So outdoor is going to set opt outdoors value to true. Apparel is going to set opt apparel's value to true. And anything else will set opt general value to true. That should do it. If you've got the code written, you should be able to test it now. But now when I open that form, it should show the option buttons and should show the right ones selected based on the data. I'll just give it a test, and then I'll come back and give you another minute or so with this code. So Control-Shift-E is my shortcut key. So here's hunting, Control-Shift-E, hunting is selected. Here's outdoor, Control-Shift-E, outdoor is selected. Here's general, Control-Shift-E, general is selected. And here's apparel. Yeah, it looks like we got all of them. That's great. So back to the code. That's what we just did. Not too bad. Any questions? Do we need another minute with this code before we move on? Anyone just raise your hand and we'll just pause for briefly? No, we're ready to go? All right, so our next step is to say, all right, after the user makes a change, we want to be able to write that back out. So here on save data, I'm not going to use a select case here, because remember, select case is wired for what? When I'm looking at a single value and then saying, if it's this, do one thing, if it's this, do something else, if it's this, do something else, and so forth. But the opposite direction, we don't have that same structure. So instead, I'm going to use the if, else if. So now I'm going to say if hunting value is true. In fact, I'm probably not even going to put the is true on here, and that will make some of you a little bit uncomfortable. If OPT hunting value, then else if, else, and if. We'll come back and fill the details in a minute. Now, some of you, I know, just from experience, would be more comfortable if this said equals true, because it makes the statement read a little bit better. You're saying if the value property of the OPT hunting object is equal to true, then do this. But what is the value property itself? It is either true or false all by itself. And so when the hunting, or when the opt hunting's value is true, this statement actually reads when true equals true, which is true. True equals true, it's a true statement. When it's false, it would say false equals true, which is false. But you see that adding equals true on the end never changes it, because if what's on the left is true, then without the equals true, it's still true. And so I'm going to write it without the equals true. Just by a show of hands, how many of you like it better with the equals true on it? Yeah, it feels more natural. It feels more comfortable. I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. I'm here to help you be a better programmer. Now, the truth is, as you're writing your code, feel free to write it. Will it take longer to execute with the equals true? Yeah, a nanosecond or two. Right? It's not even a consideration about should I make my code more efficient. I mean, really, it isn't. And so feel free to put the equals true on there if to you it makes you feel more readable. But you're not only going to have to deal with your code out there, because I think I mentioned before, wherever you go from now on, you're going to be the VBA expert in almost any group you're in, which means when there's a problem with someone else's code, they're going to ask you to look at it. So I want you to be kind of comfortable with some of the conventions. And this is a very popular convention. Drop the equals true off because there's really no reason for it to be there. So if that option button's value is true, well, then I'm just going to go ahead and, oops. I'm going to write, whoops, OPT hunting. Oh, no, not OPT hunting at all. It is, what were we in, column C? Data rows, column C. Yep. Value is equal to hunting. Let's put it in quotes and call it H-U-N-T-I-N-G. Thank you. All right, and then I'm going to have the same structure. I know you can do it. Else if that one, else if this one. Okay. So we got hunting, we've got outdoor, and we've got apparel. I'm just going to go ahead and fill these in. Otherwise, if it's none of those, it's going to be general. That should save it out now too. Go ahead and give it a shot. Someone give that a shot and tell me if it works. Anyone try it yet? I'll give it a shot. Yeah, you tried it, it works fine. Thank you. I don't know who said that, but thank you. So that's what it takes to wire up option buttons. More complex than the things we've done so far. And so you've really got to want that to be your style, to be willing to kind of to do that. Why am I even showing you this one? I keep talking about it not being such a good option. Well, you know, it's an option. Sometimes you want option buttons. And the project is going to require you to do something very similar to this. So that project is going to be part of this. Project is coming. All right, let's go look at the next control then. So our next control is going to be this list box right here. So last week we did the label, we did the text box, we did the combo box. The combo box is actually a combination of the text box and the list box. But now we're going to see the list box all by itself. So I'm going to bring the list box and kind of draw it in here. And this one, I think I'm going to go ahead and put a label with this one as well. This is going to be my list of promotions. All right, so my label, I won't be referring to the label through code, so I'll leave it named label 1, that's fine. But my caption is going to be promotions. And I'm going to name my combo box, or my list box, I will call it LST promo. my promotions that I put here in the list box. Not quite sure how wide it needs to be. Now, remember the list box is part of what makes up the combo box. And so the way that we fill the values into the list box is exactly the same as we fill the values into a combo box. So I'm just going to go copy the code that we use for filling in the combo box, and we'll modify it to work with our list box. So back to the code. Up to where we're filling things in. Let me copy the combo box code. And we'll call it our promotion list box. We don't need to dim R again. We dimmed it up above, so that's fine. But we do want to start it at 2, and similarly to our categories, which start here in column F, row 2, and go down, our promotions are right here. And so we'll just start in column B instead of column F and continue to loop down until we run out of data. So the structure should be the same, but instead of looking in column F, we're looking in column B. And instead of adding items to our category, it will be our LST promo that's we're adding items to. And the way we set which one is selected will be different. So I'll get rid of the selection part. So we're just looping through now the data that's in column B, and we're saying fill in those options into the list box. And so we should be able to run this now, and it won't show which one, which promotions are currently selected, but it should show at least what the options are. Free shipping, buy one, get one free, free warranty, or some discount. So let's just check that, make sure it works. Come back to products. And on this one, I'm on, let's come up to the top. Because my promotions are a little bit different than the rest of my data. Instead of actually having the name of the promotions here, we have an index number for the promotion, right? We look over here at the list and we see that's promotions 1 through 4. And then this one. So what promotions are on this product? 1 and 4, what are they? I don't know. Free shipping, and there's some discount as well. We're gonna discount the product and give you free shipping. They must not be selling well at all. We gotta get rid of these things. Okay, so Control-Shift-E, and now we can see we've got the promotions listed here. Buy one, get one. I think that's supposed to say free, so I probably should make that a little bit wider. But you can see now that as we select one, it unselects. This is working just the same as a set of option buttons. And so, but the nice thing here is that if I add a new promotion, now it's just going to come in and work. So the list box might be a better option than the option buttons, but stylistically, you might prefer the option buttons, whatever you're doing. Okay, but what we want to do for promotions, in fact, looking at that custom brass banded spec clear image, or that product, what does that say? How many promotions and which promotions are on this product? Okay, there are 2 promotions here, numbers 1 and 4. Well, great. There's number 1 and there's number 4, but I can only get one of them. What if I hold the control key down or the shift key or something? What can I drag? No. It's select one, then select the other. So I have to set a property of this list box to allow multiple items to be selected. I'm going to make it a little bit wider to accommodate my names of my promotions. And there's a property called multi-select. By default, it's multi-select single. You select one, and it unselects all the rest. The next option is multi-select multi. Let me run that one. This now makes it more like a set of checkboxes, because now I can turn each one on and off independently. One click turns it on, one click turns it off. By the way, we won't look at checkboxes expressly in this class, but checkboxes are exactly the same as option buttons, except they don't unset each other. They have a value property. You click it, it sets the value to true. You click it again, it sets it to false. And that's how this is working now, each one independent. And you know what? For a set of just 4 or 5, probably not a bad way to do it. But what if I've got a set of 100 things in here and sometime I want 50 things selected? That would be a nightmare to go and select each one on and off at a time. And so there's yet one more setting for multi-select, and that's multi-select extended. And that's where I'm going to leave it. Multi-select extended is like using the file manager in Windows. What's it called? The file explorer in Windows. So now if I want to select a single, file, I just click on it. And if I select another one, it unselects it. It's like it behaves like single. Unless I hold the control key down, then it behaves like multi. Each one is toggle on and off independently with the control key down. Or with the shift key down, I select one, hold the shift key down, and then click on the next one. It selects all the ones in between it. And so that's a setting to control the way the user interacts with that list box, and that's the way I'm going to leave this one. But still, the user is, well, two things. The user is not able to change what's happening here because we're not writing anything back out. But, maybe even more importantly, I've got this one selected, Control-Shift-E to bring up that form, and it's not even showing which ones are selected. And this is going to be a little bit more complex, primarily because this is not just a single value. All the rest of my columns just have a single value in it. This one doesn't even really have a value. It's got references to 2 or more different promotions. And so we're going to want some way to tell which one is, which ones are selected. And let's take a look. It's not straightforward. Go ahead. Oh, with multi-option, what you're saying is, as soon as I click one, I can't turn it off. I can select someone else. And the answer is no, I can turn that off by holding the control key down and then clicking it. Because control key turns it like to multi-select where each one toggles on and off. That was your question? Yeah. Okay, so next, let's figure out how to make these show which ones are selected. So back to the code, and still back in when we're showing the data. So right up here at the top. And there's a couple of different ways that we could do it. One would be to say, go ahead and build the whole list box. And then after we've built the list box, just the way we have it with its values in there, we could come back and look at what's in here and maybe split this into an array and then loop across that array and say, well, we've got to select number 1, we've got to select number 4. The other approach is to say, hey, while we're actually building the list box, right when we're adding an item into it, let's check and see if that one happens to be selected. So I'm going to take that approach. Either approach would be just fine. I'm going to take this approach. So right here is where I've just barely added an item in, right? I called add item. The first time I hit this, how big is my list? How many items are in my list? Yeah, just one. If I've only hit this once, there's only one item. I'm going to hit it 4 times with my current data. So I'm going to just put here, just barely added an item, or just added an item. And now I want to check to see if that one that I just added should be selected. Here is the trick. It turns out that there is a property of my list box called the list. The property is itself an array. And it holds whatever items I've added into it. But when my list box is a multi-select list box, I've got access to another array as well called selected. I'm just going to kind of simulate that right here on this page, just so we can kind of see it. There's another array here called selected. It is a Boolean array. It's either true or false, depending on whether each one is selected. And so, if I could just kind of simulate it over here on the worksheet. So if this one were selected and this one were selected, then my selected array, that's a property of the list box, would be true, false, false, true. It is exactly the same size as my list, holding each of the items that the user sees, but it's a Boolean array. And so here's what I'm going to do. Right as soon as I add free shipping in, I'm going to pause for a moment and I'm going to say, should free shipping be selected? Should the one I just added be selected? And I'll do that by looking over here and seeing if its index number is in column H of whatever row I'm trying to build. And if it is, then I will set the selected property to true. By default, when I insert all those items, the selected property gets initialized to false. That's why nothing is selected until I start selecting stuff. So that's what we're going to do. And it involves a little witchcraft. It's not simple code. Let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm going to say if, and then I want to do something here. Just leave that blank for a minute. I want to do something to find out if the item should be selected. Then we're going to select something. What are we going to select? And how are we going to set it? How are we going to say that it's selected? We're going to say LST promo. That object has a property called selected. Selected is that Boolean array. Now, we've just barely added, the first time through this, we have just barely added our first element. And so if that element should be selected, which position in the array do I want to, which position in the selected array do I want to set to true? Well, in this, this will be number 0 because it's the one that we just put in, but it's always going to be the most recently added one. So the next time through, it'll be 1. The next time through, it'll be the very end element of the array. And so I'm going to say the one at the very end. How do I say that? Well, it turns out I can ask the object how many items are in the list. LST promo has a property called list count. And so if I've just added my first element into the list, the count will be 1. The index that I want to change is 0. So this will be -1. Oh, now in this case, I'm already counting up with R. Couldn't I just say R -2? And the answer is yes, we could say R -2. But we don't always have the luxury of working off something that has an index like this. This is kind of the more general approach. So now we just have to decide what's the condition. Yes? Oh, could we say ubound? And the answer is yes. Instead of saying LST promo list count -1, ask the object what the count of the list is and subtract 1, we could say, no, I want to ubound this array. That would work just fine as well. In fact, now that I've typed it there, I might just leave it. But list count -1 will also work. Okay, so now I want to look into this string and see if the number that corresponds to the promotion I just added is in the string. And so for that, I'm going to say instr. Instr's first argument is where do I start looking, the first character. What am I going to look at? And the answer is I'm going to look at column H on my data sheet. So I'm looking at column H. And what am I looking for? So when these numbers, we're going to assume that these numbers are going to be sequential, 1, 2, 3, 4 through whatever. And so what number am I looking for when I've just added free shipping? I'm looking for 1. What number am I looking for when I've added free warranty? I'm looking for a 2. By the way, when I've just barely added free shipping, what's the list count? 1. When I've added free warranty, what's the list count? 2. Since I'm looking at this right after I've added that 1, it's always going to be the list count. So I want to know if this contains my list count. So LST promo dot list count. I don't know how long it took me to think of this the first time I thought of it. But it didn't happen as smoothly as it just happened today. It takes a little thought about how you're going to make this work. You got to have all these numbers floating around. Oh, you got to have something that's 1 here, and this is 1, this has got to be 0, and so forth. So let's just give that a shot and see how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and run this. Come over to my products, Control-Shift-E. Expected an array. Ubound list promotion.count. I said the ubound would work here okay. Let me go back to list count -1. Selected. Valid use of property. Oh, I've never actually set this equal to true. I'm trying to set that to true. I've just referred to it, but it wasn't actually setting it to a value. Let me make sure that runs, and if it does, let me go back and change it to the ubound, which I think should work too. Let me give it a shot. So Control-Shift-E. Am I in break mode? I'm in break mode, so stop this. Control-Shift-E. There we go. I've got those two selected. Let me go back and just try the upper bound. Since I said it would work, let's see if it does. So I want to see ubound here. It doesn't like it. I'm not sure why it doesn't like it. It's saying that ubound is expecting array. Oh, it's because it's not list count. This should be lst promo dot list or dot selected. Thank you. There we go. Yeah. So I just had I had the wrong property. It's not, wouldn't be list count. It was list itself. Upper bound of the list. Yeah. Upper bound of the list count. That's right. It would expect an array because list count's not an array, but list is an array. Question here, then here. Oh yeah, this is kind of dangerous. I kind of thought of that same thing the first time I did this. The answer is no, and I'll show you why. But let's take the other question first. There's a question over here. Okay, so right now, yeah, so the question is, before you had -1, now you don't. And the answer is, initially, I was using list promos.listCount. So the list box is list count property, which when I have only one item in the list, the count is 1, but the index I need is 0. And so here, instead I'm using the upper boundary, and with only one item in my list, the upper boundary is already 0. So two different ways, equal ways that I could get there, but one has to be offset. Okay, so let's think about what's going to be the problem when I actually get to where I have 10 promotions. So I've got promotion number 10. So let's just think about, and the worry is, it's not for when I put the 10 in, because the 10 is not going to find the 1. It's the other way around. When I put the 1 in, won't it find the 10? And the answer is, it depends on the order in which they appear over here. If these were counting down 10, 9, 8 this way, then when I put the first one in, I would say, hey, is 10 there? It would go, no, that's fine, and put this in. But now when I got to the 1 at the end, it would go, is there a 1 there? Yeah, there's a 1 is already in the 10. Now as I'm saying this, I'm not sure. Let's just think through it. So let's just think through the code. In fact, let's just pretend we're executing the code and look at what it's doing. Okay, so the first time through here, I'm just going to add just number 1 in, and I'm going to ask, is number 1 in the list? And the answer will be yes. And I'll be going along until I get to number 10. I'm going to ask, is number 10 in the list? And the answer is no, it's not in the list. But it doesn't. The order doesn't really matter because I'm always looking back into that comma. But let's suppose that the order that I couldn't be sure of the order in which I was going to see these. The order might not matter. When I'm adding this 1 in, the question is that number in the list? Ah, the problem is this. The problem is, what if it's promotion number 10? Here's the problem. If I have promotion number 10 and promotion number 4, when I run this, Control-Shift-F, Control-Shift-E, promotion number 1 is not in that list. Promotion 10 is in the list, but because it's number 1, I'm seeing the 1 here in the 10. That's the problem. Yeah, you're right. We should take care of this. So if the code wasn't bad enough, we got to add something else to make it a little bit worse. Let's do it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, instead of looking for the 1, I'm going to look for comma 1 comma. Now, I'm not going to find comma 1 comma because there's no comma there. So I'll have to adjust things somewhere. So there's going to be a comma there and a comma here in what I'm looking in. And so now if I look for comma 1 comma and there's a 10, I won't find it. Right? Because the commas will force those to be just the numbers that we're after. But I'm not going to change the data that's here. I'm going to leave this just like this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack that comma on the front and the back of what I'm searching for. So I'm coming in here, I'm searching, I'm looking at what's in the value right here. And that's going to be like 1 comma 4, but what I actually want to look for, I want to have a comma in front and the back. Can I do that right here? Yeah, I'll just concatenate a comma on right here. Quote, comma, quote, ampersand, and then after the value here, quote, comma, quote. Ooh, this is a little bit ugly. And quote, comma, quote. So now what I'm looking for is a comma, and then whatever is in column H plus another comma. Now, what I'm looking for right now is just a number. So I need to put a comma on the front and the back of that as well. So I'm going to do that. We'll check that it works, and then I'll take your question. Quote, comma, quote, ampersand. Wow, that's really ugly. I got a comma in quotes. I got a comma that's separating my arguments, but it looks like it's in quotes too. Another comma in quotes. Ooh. Here, ampersand, quote, comma, quote. So now, when I'm looking at this, it should be making the comparison, looking for 1 comma 1, but that's the data we'll be looking at, and I won't find it because 1 comma 1 is not there, or comma 1 comma is not there, comma 1 0 comma is. So that should prevent me from erroneously showing number 10. Control Shift E, and now it only shows the 4. Okay, you had a question? Ah, very good. So the question is, why are you using row here, but R is what's controlling the loop? And the answer is, I'm using R to look at my list sheet. I'm reading off the lists to populate the values to choose from. But now I want to look at my data sheet on whichever row we're editing. And so this ROW is marking which row we're currently editing. This R is just marking which row on my list sheet that we're currently on while we're reading to put the values in. The question is, did we dim row as a variable? The answer is yes. We dimmed it way at the top as a module level variable. We give it its value in the initialize. So when we initialize the form, we're saying row is going to be whatever the row of the active cell is. So the user is, well, unless they're on row 1, and then we're going to just advance row to be 2. We don't want to be editing the headers. We'll push down to the first row if that's the case. So is this the most complicated line we've written yet in this class? Maybe not the most complicated, but I think it probably has the most commas and quotes of any line that we've written. Questions? Okay. Our next step then, I think we're successfully showing the right data. Let's come here and try this one. Control Shift E. That's getting number 2. Let me make another one here that says like 1, 3, and 4. 1, 3, 4. And run this, Control Shift E. Yeah, 1, 3, and 4. Looks like we're doing a pretty good job with it. Of course, we don't have a promotion number 10, but if we did, then that would show number 10. Okay, so now I think we're getting the data in here properly. The user can say, no, this is only a free warranty. And when we say okay, we should write these values out. And so now that's kind of the last step. Let's go ahead and write the values out from this combo box. That will be in our save data. So let me come back to find save data. And this will be, that's our promotions. Oh, that's show data. Here's save data. Okay, so here, again, promotions. All right, how can we decide, or how can we write out back a comma-separated list of variables, or comma-separated list of integers that will correspond to the promotions that the user has selected here? How are we going to do it? Any thoughts? Just think of an algorithm. You know what? Talk to me in English. Don't have to give me VBA, but in English, how would I do it? Where do I look to see what's selected? Yeah, not the list property. The list shows me the names, but there's another array that's exactly the same size that has true and false values in it based on what's selected. What is it called? Selected. Yeah, it's the selected array. All we have to do is loop across the selected array and just see which ones are true, and then plug in the right number. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to need a variable here to go across that array. So dim x as an integer. I'm going to need some kind of variable to kind of collect the string that I'm going to try to write out into my cell. And so here I'm going to say dim x as an integer. I'm going to dim another variable, dim promotions as a string. And now I'm going to loop through that array. For x equals 0 to lst promo dot list count minus 1. So if I've got 4 items in the list, I want my variable to go from 0 to 3. Next, and now I just want to say promotions equals what it used to be concatenated with a comma concatenated with, oh, I only want to do this if the value is right. So let me make the if statement first. So if lst promo dot selected, looking at the selected array, looking at the xth position, if that is true, then we'll do this. And what do I want to do? I want to say promotions equals what it used to be plus, what happens if I put x here? If the first one was selected, what will x put out there? So what's my first one? My first one is free shipping. What should be in the cell if free shipping is a promotion? 1 should be in that cell. But when I'm looking at the corresponding position for free shipping in my selected, what is x? Yeah, x is 0. So I can't write out the x, I'll just put 0. What should I put? And it's x plus 1. And so now it will add that up, or it will shift that, the one that I need it shifted, and then it will build my promotions. That's pretty close. Let me just go ahead and write promotions out to the right place in the data. So after the loop, I'm going to say that column H of the row, or column H of the cell that is my row I'm working on, that value is going to equal promotions. We're almost there. And so if I run this, get on some promotions here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, Control Shift E, change this to number 2 and 3 selected, and that writes out 2 and 3. That's pretty good. Only problem is I've got this leading comma. Why do I have a leading comma? Because every time I find one that needs to be added, I'm adding on to my existing list, which starts off as a 0-length string. I'm adding on a comma and then the number. So I've got that extraneous comma right at the beginning. And so when I write the promotions string to the worksheet, I don't want to write the whole thing. How do I say write everything but the first character? Mid, starting at character number 2. I mean, normally I say start at character number 2, give me 3 characters. But if I don't tell it how many characters to take, what does it do? It takes the rest of the string. So now I can, now this will not put that extra comma in there. In fact, even if the comma is there, it should still work. Control-Shift-E will bring that up. And if I just say OK again to save it, it'll get rid of that comma because now it still builds the comma in the variable, but it just doesn't use that variable, or it doesn't use the comma from the variable when it writes out because it skips character number 1 starting with character number 2 when we write it out. Oh, whew. Complex? Yeah, this is not simple stuff. Now, you may say to me, Professor Allen, my brain is full. Or the next reasonable thing to do here is to say, listen, when I'm in the process of saving this, or when I go to save it, maybe even before I get here, I should check to see if I've got a particular promotion. Because if I have promotion number 4 is a discount, if I've got promotion number 4, I have to have a value over here. This says promotion number 4, this column has to tell me what is the discount. If I have a number 4 promotion, I gotta know what the discount is. What does it mean if I have a discount over here, 10% discount, but I got no promotion for it? That doesn't really mean, what does that mean? I don't know. Is it discounted 10%? It's not, because there's no 1 here. That might not be so bad, but this is a problem. We're saying there's a discount. How much? 0% discount. Have you ever seen that? On sale today, normal price $9.95. This sale price $9.95. That's what this would be saying. So it probably makes sense when we're doing our data validation to look at this and go, oh my gosh, there's a 4 there, and oh, if there's a 4, there darn well better be a number here. We can't leave this blank. Put up an alert, hey, if you're gonna make a discount, you gotta give us a discount percent in column I. Well, it's not in column I, it's in the discount percent on the form. And then not let them save anything. I could either show you how to do that, or I could leave that as an exercise for the interested student and we could call it good. So here's what I'm gonna do. Why don't we take a little break right now, and if you want to get out of here, you can. But for those that are interested, I'm gonna go ahead and talk through it. But we need probably all of 5 minutes to do it. So if you want to break and go, it'll be on the recording. You might want to use it for the project. It'll be like that level of data validation will be on the project. But don't feel, we won't hurt my feelings at all if you go. I know that we could be at the saturation point right now. And it might be more healthy for you to say, I'm gonna watch this on the video later. And I'm interested in your mental health. So I'll even avert my eyes for a moment. And if you want to leave, if anyone's still here, when I open my eyes, I'll continue with the example. All right, so we're going to take a look then at adding kind of a complex data validation here. We want to know if 4 is included in the promo. That's exactly the same thing when we're trying to see if the thing is selected, right? We want to know if 4 was in there. So I'm going to start off by copying that little line of code. It wasn't an easy line of code to write. I want to write it again. So if, and this one looks pretty good. Now, I'm not going to be looking for, you know, the one that I just added. I'll be looking for 4 here. It'll be a little simpler than this. But I'm going to take this if statement and come down to my OK. Where is it? My OK click. So before I get to save data, I want to put another if down here for data validation. So looking at whichever row I'm on, column H. Oh no, that's not. I'm not looking there. I want to know if in my form I've got that one selected. That won't be so bad at all. So I'm going to just look in the selected property. Okay, so if LST promo dot selected sub 3 is equal to true, don't have to put equal to true there, then we'll do something. This means, okay, we discount promotion is selected. P-R-O-M-O. If that's the case, I want to do another check. And for this, we're going to need something on our form. So back to my form. And we're going to put here a text box with a label that says discount %, caption here, we'll call this one TXT discount. So if number 3 is selected and the discount % is blank, we've got a problem. So back to my code. Oh, that's got my OK button. If that's selected and TXT discount dot value is equal to a 0-length string, we could do some other checks here, right? We could check to make sure it is, actually, let's do it. I'm going to leave this one right there. And then, so if it's selected, I've got some other checks to do. What am I going to do? I'm going to say if TXT discount dot value equals a 0-length string, it's completely blank, then we'll do something. What are we going to do? Message box. What's the message box going to say? If you select discount as a promotion, you must also supply a discount %. Let's do this. Let's say TXT discount dot set focus. Set focus is a method. The method just says put the focus there. The focus is where if you start typing where your keystrokes go. So we're giving the user a little help here. We're actually selecting the part of the form that they left blank. And then we're going to exit EXIT sub. I'll do one more check here. We could put others. So in fact, I'm going to put this one outside of the loop, outside of the if for whether there's one selected. And we're going to say if TXT discount.value is non-numeric. So if not is numeric, the discount. I don't think blank is going to be, if it's non-numeric and there's something there, TXT discount dot value is greater than an empty string. So there's something there and it's non-numeric, then we want to say discount must be numeric. Must be a number, must be numeric. we might want to put another check if it's in the right range, right? Maybe we're not allowed to go above 100%. And I don't know how we're going to be showing this as 0 through 100 or 0 through 1, but some way we want to, check to make that sure that range is right. Question? Let's give this a shot. So set focus. So in when we have a form, let's go ahead and run it and we'll see. Control-Shift-E. Let's go ahead and select discount. And right now, I'll put the focus up here on the name of the product. I'll say OK. It says, hey, if you select discount as promotion, you got to supply a discount %. Oh, and watch what happens. I'll say OK, and it's going to put the insertion point right there. That's the focus of the form. The focus is where, when you start typing, it's where characters go. So we don't really have to do that. We can make the user click on it, but we know that that's the problem. Let's just tell them to fix it right here. And so, yep, it went to that one because we told it that's the one we wanted to set the focus on. So this kind of two-step verification is really common. You say we have dependencies between different things on the form. You can leave this one blank, but if you do, then something over here has to be selected differently. If we wanted to be even fancier, we could say, wow, whenever this changes, we could see if discount is selected, and if so, we could make this show up. We could be invisible unless you select it. And then when you deselect it, it could go invisible again. We could do that level of thing as well, just depending on how fancy you want to be. Some people prefer not to see stuff that's not relevant. Other people don't want to see things disappearing. I want that on my form. All right, other questions? All right, that should be now enough on user forms for you to be able to do that user forms project, which I will have published on Saturday. Of all the projects, the graders, that's the one I'm most worried about because the new architecture doesn't give me any way to interact with a user form. So I'm hopeful that I can figure out some way to make it gradable. If not, I may have to cancel it, but don't count on that. I don't think I'm going to cancel it. All right, thanks for coming. Class dismissed.